Joburg's hottest breakfast show.
Michael Abramson is our legend this morning, right here on Hot 91.9. Michael, great to see you.
Thank you. So
thanks for coming through. Yeah. There might be people sitting and going, but who is Michael Abramson?
Yeah, there are quite a few people doing that.
But a lot of people only know you specifically for your mentalist side of your life, whereas I've always known you as a broadcaster.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I've always known you as the man on SABC radio. And you did some TV as well, especially on the cricket side. Yeah. But very much on the radio side, and whether it was cricket or whether it was football or whether it was rugby or whatever they needed Michael Abramson to go and do, you were always on my radio, on Radio 2000.
Oh, super. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some good days and bad days in that department. And at the moment, it's in a bit of a state of flux, let's put it that way, as it is with all of us.
Yes, we know.
But we'll move on. And there are other challenges in life, fortunately, to keep you busy.
True. Now, let's talk a little bit about commentary, because commentary is a very, very difficult, especially radio commentary. Television commentary, because you have the picture, is quite simple. Not simple, but it is a lot easier. Whereas on radio, when you listen to radio commentary, it is that theatre, because you have to create everything, especially if you're doing a football match. You've got to know where the players are, etc., etc. So the first question is, do you have an eidetic memory?
Yes and no. I have an ability to, I suppose, memorize information about players and lock that in and be able to recall it when I need it. But you know, when you're behind the mic and in a particular state of action and involved in the whole process, a lot of points that you want to bring up, you sort of push to the back of your mind and describe the moment as it happens. So I'm able to recall facts on occasion when I need it, but normally you just go with what's happening.
It's very, because I find it very, very difficult. I've sat there and tried to do some radio commentary before, and yes, you sort of remember the people's names, but then it's you have to try and sit there and say, hold on a second, you need to tell the people where that person is on the field, which direction they're playing, how they're passing the ball, etc., in which direction, and then to whom. And then on top of that, then you still have to remember all of the stats about each of those players.
And be conscious of the fact that people are joining the broadcast all the time.
Correct.
So you might have just done a summary, for example, and you need to update regularly, which a lot of our young new broadcasters don't do because they haven't been taught to do that. So that's unfortunately problematic. And the thing is, listeners get frustrated because they tune in, they're expecting to hear what's going on, and the current broadcasters don't realize that you've got people joining all the time and you need to keep them updated as to what's happening. Sometimes people, you're in your car, you're there for five minutes, listen to a quick broadcast, you don't know what's happened in the game.
100%.
Yes.
Now, I'm glad you actually brought that up, because I was going to bring it up a little bit later. But why do they not use someone like you to train? Have they never asked you to sit there and say, listen, take so-and-so and so-and-so and teach them, or give them advice as to how to broadcast?
It's never happened.
There is a guy, and it's shocking. It's shocking, and people at companies like SuperSport and SABC should be listening to this, because people are not taught how to broadcast, and they're not taught how to commentate on games. There is a guy who I listen to when I try and find out what's going on if I'm in my car, and I go into Radio 2000 and I pick up, and there is a guy who's been doing a football commentary, I think, for the last 6 or 7 years, and I've listened to him. He has not improved, and I still don't know who he's playing against who, which direction they are, what score it is, what the score is, and I've been listening for 5 minutes.
But the problem is, and I don't want to obviously knock another station, they must do whatever they want to do, but there's nobody to tell the commentators that they're not doing a good job. So they think they're marvelous. So they think they're doing a wonderful job and everybody loves them and there's no room for improvement. So they're not willing to go out there and put in the effort and learn, because they think they're at a level where they need to be. And the problem is management don't really care about what they need to do to get the product improved. It's only when they have international interest, for example, a World Cup or a Rugby World Cup, a Soccer World Cup, when their commentary is going out internationally, then they suddenly get worried, and then they bring in internationals. Then phone calls start being made to various people in the industry,
like yourself.
please come back and do a World Cup, for example. Next year, there's the Russian World Cup, of course, for the Rugby World Cup in 2015. They brought me back for the 6th time. And so you know what, things happen like that. But that's the industry, and you get used to it, and you do what you can. You get what you can out of it, and you try and do the best job that you can when you can.
Yeah.
Because it's not a job that lasts very long.
No, that's for sure. It doesn't, unfortunately. 20 minutes away from 8 o'clock, Michael Abramson is our legend this morning. We're going to talk about the mentalist, him being a mentalist, how he got there, and then also other things, some of the good and bad of broadcasting as well. If you have any questions, just let us know on 44919. You got a question there, Si?
No, more statement really, Michael. I just associate you, and I hear your voice. I just think of long trips through the Karoo.
Yeah,
yes, on Radio 2000.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's amazing. It is.
And sending messages to the Radio 2000 line with rude names and trying to get you to read them. Which you did a few times.
Did I?
You're welcome.
Oh, pleasure. But lovely to see you, Simon.
Amazingly versatile. What is your favorite sport?
Very hard to say because broadcasting on television and radio is very different. I'd say
picture tells a story. Yeah,
absolutely. And what picture are you referring to, John?
Just ignore in the bigger picture. You know what I mean?
Listen, I'm not awake. I'm a night person. I go to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is all too overwhelming for me. I'm feeling very hot in here.
But what is your favorite?
To broadcast.
Sport, yes.
Gymnastics, John.
Are you serious?
Just for you.
Just for you. There we go. Gymnastics. There we go.
Okay. And beach volleyball.
The pole vault.
That's my favorite one to watch. That's for sure. Michael Abramson, we've been talking a little bit about commentary. Let's carry on the sports side for a while. I mean, you've been involved in so many amazing events in South Africa over the years. One of the big highlights for you?
I suppose the Olympics in Athens in 2004 was probably my biggest highlight.
Yeah, I mean, that's a biggie.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
3.5 weeks of about 19 hours a day, working extensively for both television and radio in Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa.
Oh, incredible.
We had almost a tripartite agreement, if you like.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And getting an opportunity to travel and follow the South Africans, but also cover so many different sports. And being thrust into doing athletics commentary for the first time. My first ever athletics commentary was the men's 100-meter final. Usain Bolt's first Olympics.
How's that?
So that was quite scary.
Well, exactly.
But you know what?
You just do it.
You do it, you fly by the seat of your pants, and that's how the industry works.
And
it's wonderful. You don't have time to panic. You don't have time to think about it. You just go and do it.
You just got to go and do it. Very much like this radio show. Just doesn't come out so as brilliantly
polished
as that.
You, definitely does.
No, that's for sure. Okay, so I mean, the sports side, you will decide whether or not you want to continue in terms of commentary, etc., etc.
Yeah, look, I'd like to continue in the right forum, but it has to be made.
It's just so sad that all of a sudden you get sort of pushed out for no legitimate reason, and you're going, but I've got so much to offer, and you're so passionate about it.
But I suppose that applies to everybody
in this room.
Count your blessings, Michael.
Yes.
We're playing Zimbabwe in a 4-day test in Boxing Day.
I know.
Count your blessings.
I could be on a cruise ship traveling around the world.
I'm sure you will be. Yeah. I'm sure you will be.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Michael, let's get your education. You're an actuarial scientist, is that correct?
Something like that, yes.
An actuary?
Yes.
Okay.
By profession.
By
but
profession.
I don't practice.
You don't practice it. There we go. So
I'm good at it, so I don't need to practice.
Where did you go to school?
Where did I go to school?
Yes.
Did you go to school?
I think you might have had to.
I taught myself.
Okay, well, you're already more qualified than Johnny.
Okay, so you finished school, you went to university.
I went to Wits for 5 years.
Wits for 5 years, studied to become an actuary.
Yes, correct.
There we go. And then sat there and went, sure, gee, everyone sat and went, oh, this is just unbelievable. And what do you become? Goes into the media.
Yes,
because you love it.
I get asked that a lot.
Yeah.
People say to me,
condemned to a life of poverty.
Yeah, exactly. Where you could have sat there in some insurance company telling people how many years it's going to take for them to die and get paid millions and millions of rands.
Sure. Yes, you could.
Yes, we decided to go and commentate on...
you could tell people how many years they still have to live or die and who's going to die in the next year, and then you can get some other members in to give you the people's names and addresses who are going to die in the next year. So that you can also do. Yeah, but look, as John says, it's all about a passion and what you really love doing. I used to sit in my free time working at FedSure, or FedLife as they were called, when they existed in the centre of Johannesburg, planning my next broadcast and phoning the SABC and saying, what's the next cricket match that's coming up? And that was where my passion was.
Oh, brilliant.
So I didn't last long working as an actuarial consultant.
Okay.
But
you could, I mean, I suppose it does help you when it comes to all of the statistics and remembering things, because, I mean, that's exactly what that is about, and formulas.
I think so. It definitely does work the part of the brain that you need when you're broadcasting.
Are you good at art? Can you draw?
No.
Well, there goes that theory.
By the way, I've seen Michael when he broadcasts, no papers in front of him. He just goes for it. So you talk about all those stats and things, he just knows it in his head.
Sometimes, John.
A lot of times.
Thank you.
And here I am. I've got 7 pages in front of me. I don't even know which one to read. Incredible.
Please
now,
put that 5x5 cube down.
We've got
scaring me today.
We've got a 5x5 Rubik's Cube over here. Okay. Which Michael says if we had a slightly longer show, he'd be able to solve it by then. But that's very intimidating, let's be honest.
Yes, it is very, even for me, it's intimidating.
Okay.
And I'm used to
normal
working with a 3x3 and 2x2 and all these other cubes that come out.
And you can do all of those. But this one's a bit hectic.
That one I've never tried.
So on the standard Rubik's Cube, how many, because Michael remembers the combinations. He was telling me off air.
Yeah.
How many combinations for a standard Rubik's Cube to solve it?
About 600 different ones in a typical solve.
Yeah.
And the South African record is about, I think it's now around about 9 seconds.
Wow.
How quickly can you solve it?
My best is about 17. But which sounds impressive, but it's not. I'm right about 60th in the country at the moment.
17. Mark Pilgrim posted his 2-minute video the other day. Pilgrim, don't even come to work, buddy. But just 17 seconds against 2 minutes.
But the scariest thing is that these kids who do it are about 12, 13, 14 years of age, and they've got the finger dexterity to be able to do it. They might not have the ability to remember all the moves, but their dexterity is amazing.
Yeah.
Which I can't
Interestingly,
match.
though, Michael, when Johnny talks about 9 seconds, he means something else.
Oh, okay. I've gathered.
And 11 and 17. Okay.
That's incredible, though.
Now, so we go into let's talk now. How do you become a mentalist? Well, number one, what is a mentalist?
It's a very good question. There are 3 professional mentalists in the country, and everyone will give you a different definition.
Okay. So it's you, Gillan Gork?
Gillan Gork. There's Larry Soffa in Cape Town.
Yes, Larry Soffa.
And there are a few others. There are a number of others who do mentalism, but they also do illusions at the same time. So we don't class them as pure mentalists.
Okay. So what is a mentalist?
Somebody who uses the mind, essentially, and psychology and mathematics and memory and all these techniques to enable people to influence their courses of action over the course of a show, typically. So it's basically using a 6th sense to enhance the 5 senses that you already have.
Wow.
If you
It's
like.
complicated, eh?
Yeah, it's very complicated this time of the morning.
It is. It's very complicated this time of the morning. It's 8 minutes away from 8 o'clock. After 8 o'clock, we're going to be chatting to Michael about mentalism, how it works, how he got into it, all about his shows, where you can go and watch him, etc., etc. And I don't know, maybe he'll perform some trick on Simon and Andy or John or myself or whatever and turn us into cleverer people.
And just strolls.
Hey, don't play with that. That's for me.
Oh,
got my name on
what's
it.
in the box? Open it, Simon.
It is Wanted by Azzaro, which is really nice because
Wanted by you.
No, can I just tell you what happened? Is Simon Parkinson left his package. That sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
He was sent something from the lovely people at Clarence Azzaro yesterday, and he left it here in the studio. And then we decided to open it and use it as a fragrance for the studio. It smells delicious. And then Anne had got my name on here, and they sent it to me. And I feel a little bit embarrassed because I sent a message to Bronwyn and Clarence saying, I feel unloved. Oh. I'm such a little schmuck.
So what did John and I have to do to get?
Yeah, how do we get? Can we have a spray? Can you spray us?
I'll put it this way. People have to know who you are.
Oh, that is horrible.
They will if we wear that.
Anyway, speaking of people who we know who they are, Michael Abramson in the studio with us here today. Michael, let's talk about we spoke very briefly about mentalism. So what is a mentalist? You said somebody who tries to not change somebody's way of life, but
No, you
predict?
don't. It depends on which area we're talking about. If it's somebody coming to watch a show or somebody that I'm training one-on-one or in groups.
Okay, so we'll
Because
talk
it
about
works
your training
differently.
shortly.
Okay, so if it's somebody who comes to watch a show,
Yes.
it's basically to give them an entertaining environment, but to show them that anything is possible with a mind. If they believe things enough and they are willing to suspend their disbelief and just enjoy the show, incredible things can happen.
How did you know that you could be a mentalist, or what led you to sit there and say, this is what I want to go and do?
I didn't even know such a thing existed, to tell you the truth. And then a friend of mine who's also a fellow magician, because that's where I started. I started
Okay.
doing magic. He took me to see this mentalist probably about 20 years ago now, a
Oh,
visiting
really?
mentalist from the States. And I went to watch the show. I didn't know what was going on, but I thought, I have to learn this. And it suits exactly what I do.
Because, I mean, you've got that kind of capacity, as you mentioned right in the beginning, to sit there and say, I can, if I need to draw on something, I can.
But I didn't know how to learn it. This guy was doing incredible things. Somebody was opening a book on a random page and he was telling them what words were written on the page and getting people to sit in specific chairs. And the whole show was amazing. And I thought to myself, how do I learn this? And then I did research, got books on psychology that I started reading and started to communicate with mentalists around the world and gradually put a show together and then develop new material.
Well, listen, I've seen your show. I've seen one of your shows, and it's mind-boggling. It is just
you.
completely mind-boggling. Could I become a mentalist?
I'm sure you could.
I mean, I'm asking that. I mean, somebody who's listening now says, "This is incredible." They've heard about it, and there was the TV show called The Mentalist, which is sort of there-ish, but is not nearly as technical and as brilliant as what you guys.
It's written for television, so
Yes.
it's a show.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
But I mean, somebody listening can sit and say, "Sure, this sounds really interesting." How do you go? Do you go and search mentalist on the Google and say,
I don't know what you do actually in terms of training. You've got to, I suppose, know a little bit about psychology.
Yeah.
Learn a bit about the way the brain works and how people think, and read books, observe people. That's very important. Body language is crucial. So I go, and during my travels, I watch people at airports. I watch people not in a creepy sort of a way. But
You're wearing a trench coat and
stalker?
I just take the glass off and I look like somebody completely different, but then I can't see what I'm doing.
This is what's got John Wallen banned for Brian Evans.
Exactly. And from other countries as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's what you do. It's observing people, watching how people respond to different situations, and gradually learning cues.
Okay.
In terms of how people will respond to certain things you say. Also, I have a background in statistics, which was a key element of actuarial science. So
Yes.
I know probabilities and how people are likely to react in certain situations, and you put it all together.
It's
Do
fascinating.
you prime people?
No.
I'm not talking about a prime number to get you excited.
It's amazing what gets me excited. So
I don't talk about your digit. But
that's perfect.
do you prime? Nice.
Yeah.
Do you prime people like before a show?
Definitely not. I make it a point of not speaking to people specifically or engaging with them before a show. So, for example, often if I do a corporate function and I get invited there maybe to have dinner with the people, I try and sit on my own away from the guests before the show starts, because otherwise I don't want people coming to me and saying, but you've been chatting to me the whole time, you figured out things about me, or you know my name, or you've done some research. So I go and try and sit on the side after the show. I'm very, very happy to engage with them, but before things, you try and come in there almost cold, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Michael's show at a corporate, and I just sat there and went, it's just crazy. And a couple of years ago, you came in, you did some stuff with us when we were at 5, so you set up something as and there you sit and you see it in a very brief form. But when you see a whole show, it's mind-boggling.
The nice thing about a show is it allows you to develop the show as you go. So initially you start off showing people maybe some memory and mathematical skills, and then gradually they start buying into the process. And then you make it, you go on a slightly more adventurous journey.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about a show is you never know how it's going to play. If you do a magic show, for example, you know that trick number 1, you're pulling a rabbit out of a hat, and it's always going to be the same rabbit and the same hat, and everything's exactly the same, and you can script it. In a show, you're so dependent on your audience. and how they respond and whether they listen to instructions or don't listen to instructions.
Correct.
Or how willing they are to play along or not play along. So that if I can do the same show 20 times and have 20 completely different outcomes, which makes it exciting because you're flying by the seat of your pants, so to speak.
It very much so. Now, in terms of that, so you do a lot of corporates.
Yes.
In that. But do you do a show where, people who are listening say, I want to go and see Michael Abrams?
Yes, we've actually just had a run of shows at Santon Theatre on the Square called Visage, which is my stage show written together with Richard Nosworthy, who's a very big and well-known name in the industry. He directs my shows.
Okay.
We also have a show called One Man, One Island.
John thought Richard Nosworthy used to coach the Lions cricket side.
That's Dave Nosworthy.
Yeah, but John thought it was Richard for many years.
They're brothers, actually.
Yes. Oh, they're brothers.
Yes.
See, Johnny?
Yes.
Okay,
There you go. Yeah,
Dickie and Dave.
Yeah, Dickie and Dave.
good people, very good people. And so there are a couple of shows at the moment. We're looking at bringing the show back early next year. Just negotiating dates at the moment with theatres. So
where would they find this information?
On my website, principally, and theatres will obviously put out their own media content.
Right. What's your website?
Powerbrain.co.za.
Powerbrain.co.za. Let's talk about Powerbrain now, because this is what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Indeed.
So we're talking about the Mentalist in terms of a big show, etc., but on your day-to-day, you do something called Powerbrain, where you work either in groups or with individuals. How does that work?
Typically, it works with schools. So schools would invite me to come and do a free presentation, and it would typically last half an hour to 45 minutes. And I'd talk to the whole school and show them what can be done with the power of the mind, because schools get a lot of guest speakers who promise the world and come in there and say, we'll show you how to improve your results, or we'll do a quick fix, or this or that. And so you have to get the learners and the staff to buy in. So I show them memory demonstrations. I show them what can be done with the power of the mind. And then after that, we set up courses for people at the school.
Those who want to come in.
Those who want to come in. And there's no admin for the school at all. All the school do is provide the venue. And then I come along and run the course. It takes typically over a course of a day, but we have breaks in between, so it's not that long a day. Mm-hmm. And the learners learn everything they need to empower them in exams, how to retain information, improving memory, diet, motivation, improved spelling, all sorts of things that are going to get them extra marks in exams. Excuse me.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit left of centre here, and my it's a very debatable topic, and that is kids who have got ADD, ADHD, etc., and there's been, let's be honest, a trend over the last couple of years for a lot of schools to, tell their parents of kids that the kids need to be on some kind of medication, etc., etc. Now, it's very debatable, and people could go down here and there. And I'm sure you must come across it
all the time,
where you get parents who come to you and say, "Sure, my child is diagnosed ADD or ADHD, etc., etc. They can't remember, they can't focus, etc., etc." How effective is your Powerbrain methods?
Well, the nice thing about it is that because it's not like school, you're not sitting there and listening to somebody talking to you the whole day. You're actively involved in activities and fun exercises that you do throughout the course of the day, so you don't feel it. So even the kids who are ADD or ADHD or on Concerta or Ritalin or whatever substance they might be on, they're engaged in the process from the beginning to the end. So it's actually wonderful. And eventually what happens is they get slowly, for lack of a better word, weaned off these drugs. If they use the methods correctly and they're using their brain correctly, they might not be as dependent on it as they think they might be. So gradually you see improvements, and you see them slowly not having to take it as often, or sometimes not at all.
Or not at all.
Which is great in the long term.
No, of course. I think, I think it's just something, fascinating where, sure, I think I should come on the course. Hey, don't you think it'd be just brilliant just to learn how to use your brain?
All right, I just can't remember when the next one is. I'll let you know.
Let us know. So powerbrain.co.za.
Indeed.
There we go. Michael, we're going to wrap it up there. It's so brilliant to see you again.
Thank you so much.
I really do hope you come to some kind of negotiation when it comes to the broadcasting, because I love listening to you on the radio, and hopefully we'll still listen in the future and continue with your shows. Please let us know when you're going to be doing some more shows. We'd love to promote it and come along to watch as well.
It's been fantastic being with you guys and seeing you all
Michael.
again. So thank you very, very
you
much.
haven't changed.
No, thank you.
Unfortunately, you haven't either, Johnny.
And all of the best. And powerbrain.co.za. Michael Abramson. Great to have him on Legends right here on Hot 91.9. Be safe.
Thanks for
and
having
thanks to Ava's Chauffeur Drive for bringing Michael here. And they'll be taking you home shortly as
I
well.
hope so.
Yeah.
Not that I want to leave, but I hope they do drop me at home.
we hope so too.
Joburg's hottest breakfast show.
Sasha Martinengo, Andy Levy, John Wallen, Kwaneli Kuneni, Simon Hill.
Weekdays from 6 to 9.
Hot